So, I've been watching the Dahmer series on Netflix. Also, just watching maybe like a video about him on YouTube, like his last interview and stuff. And during this interview, I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, I just felt, I guess there's no other way to describe it but just to say, use the word drawn to him. I mean, like, I guess I meant drawn energetically to him for whatever reason. Usually, I don't get drawn to certain people for no reason, like energetically. There's always been a reason for whoever I'm drawn to. Like, every single time I look at it, there's always a reason. And with Jeffrey Dahmer, I just had to look up his birth dates to see maybe if he could have been a Taurus. And it turns out his birth date is actually May 21st. Mine is May 17th. So that would make both of us a Taurus Gemini cusper. Yeah, I bet y'all probably thinking,
oh my gosh, another female on that astrology type-ish.
But listen, hey, energy don't lie, okay? Energetically drawn, it has always been like for a reason, and usually it's because of my zodiac sign or for another specific reason, like maybe we have the same interest or like we think similarly. Is that a word? Either way, it's always something. There's always a reason I'm drawn to a person, and I'm thinking it's because of this Taurus Gemini cusper thing. Could be more, but I mean, I feel like there's something deeper there in terms of that. But anyways, besides that, if you haven't seen the series is very interesting. I want to go in depth about it just a tad bit more, because it really is interesting from like all sides, all perspectives. Yeah, I don't know. I just found that interesting. That I was energetically drawn to this man, a serial killer. And I was like, okay, this is strange. Why am I sympathizing with this man? This man was a very evil man, and he knew it too. He admitted to it. And I don't know, the fact that he can, like, admit that he was evil, like, that's a whole nother level of understanding, a whole nother level of confession, and just because I see a person that's genuinely trying to understand why he is or was the way he was. Like, genuinely trying to understand. And, like, I don't know. Something about him was different, like, from the other serial killers. Because I've seen a whole bunch of different serial killers, heard about a whole bunch of different serial killers. And at the same time, out of all of them, I'm just wondering why Jeffrey Dahmer is so different. Like, what about him makes this situation so different, or him as a person so different? I don't know. The fact that he has that type of intelligence, I feel like he's really highly intelligent, and he knew what he was doing. He knew he wanted to stop. He admitted that he couldn't. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just all those factors. I don't know why, but I just find that interesting and very, dare I say it, admirable, because most serial killers would try to plead not guilty and would try to lie about their crimes and, just not be remorseful at all or showing any remorse and actually not caring about any other, life. But I think Dahmer, to an extent, I think he did care to an extent from, what I've seen. Just haven't done extensive research, but I've only seen like, snippets of interviews, videos, the Dahmer series, of course. But I genuinely think he cared to an extent. But, when those urges take over, they're a lot stronger than, caring for an individual. And at that point, it's about self. So I find it interesting because I usually don't have any sympathy or empathy for people that mess with children. Like, I am so harsh about that because I don't like people that take advantage of the innocents, like the vulnerable. And that, includes women and stuff, like kids especially. Like, that's just one of the boundaries you do not cross. Like, even gangs know that, you don't mess with children. But like, for whatever reason, when it's the same with Jeffrey Dahmer, but Jeffrey Dahmer as a person, he just makes me want to understand those types of people, like, even more. Like, for whatever reason, it's like I would have liked to give him a chance if he was still alive to, like, further explain what was going on in his head and why he did the things that he did. And, just so we can start understanding these people and dealing with these problems and issues from a place of love rather than hate. And I think Jeffrey Dahmer definitely could have been a key to that, because with all the other, serial killers, pedophiles, like, it just pisses me off. It makes me angry. It just makes me want to, give all of them the death sentence. But I don't know. I just feel like Jeffrey Dahmer could have been the key, the connection between all those serial killers and pedophiles, so people could really understand. And like the Dahmer series, because if you haven't seen it, spoiler alerts ahead, if you haven't seen the series, but in the series, they take it from the victim's point of view of like everyone involved, or everyone that was associated with Jeff in some way, and how they were affected by all this. And it just made me so sad, bro. Like, I cried. I did. I teared up. Because, with all these serial killer documentaries, the focus is mainly on the serial killer. But when you actually think about the people that were involved, like the families, the victims, and you start seeing things from their perspective, it kind of puts you in their shoes, and you really see where they were coming from. You see their anger. You see why they're angry, why they're so, passionate about justice or getting justice from these people. And I definitely can understand that, because I would want that if it happened to any of my family members. But it was really heartbreaking to see that. And it really put things into perspective. It really did. Like, even from, Jeffrey Dahmer's point of view, it's already relatable, to an extent. Like, there's people out there that can definitely relate to Dahmer's earlier years of life. And that right there, that's one perspective. And like, so now you're in a way connecting with Dahmer, but also the victims that were involved. And for me, it kind of like, I understand between the perpetrator and the victims. I understand from both sides where they're coming from, to an extent. And it's just crazy, because like the person that had to live next to Dahmer, I think Glinda was her name, and she had to live with her 2 daughters next to a serial killer, a male at that. Like, that's freaking dangerous, bro. And the fact that her and her daughters had to go through that, probably sleepless nights, a lot of sleepless nights for God knows how long, and just, listen to all that, screaming going on, or any other disturbances that could have went on in that other room. And this woman had a job. The woman had a job, and she was literally just trying to provide for her children and, pay the bills at a place that was already, run down, maybe littered with crime and freaking who knows what else all goes on over there in poor parts of like apartments and stuff. But, she just trying to pay bills and everything and just take care of her own. And the fact that he was affecting that, Jeff was affecting that, because, he wanted to do whatever he wanted to do with the smells and stuff coming out of the room, the noise, the disturbances, constant disturbances. Man, like, that's one thing that really broke my heart. And the fact that it really bothered me, because this really happens. Like, it legit happens to minorities. Like, even recently, maybe like a year or 2 ago, I'll tell you after I make this point, but Glinda in the series, she would call the police like multiple times, and they just ignored her. Like, she was detailed with everything. She said, hey, it's an emergency. Somebody's getting killed, beat on. I heard screaming, all of that. And these are constant calls, probably not only being made by her, but the other people who also live near or around that apartment area where Jeffrey Dahmer lived. But in the series, Glinda was the focus. So, just that alone, that is so real. That is so real. Because I remember I was out with my dad and we went to another side of town. I guess it seemed kind of poor and a lot of minorities stayed there. From what I saw, it was mostly Hispanics and blacks. And all of a sudden, this woman falls out. It was an older Hispanic lady. And out of nowhere, you could hear it. She fell down in this store. And I don't know, it was weird. I can't remember exactly what happened, but in my mind, I was just looking around, this store. It was a small store too, kind of. I was looking around the store and I was just wondering, kind of shocked, wondering why people weren't doing anything to help this woman. You gotta be kidding me. Why is nobody helping her? Nobody, from what I know, is, calling the cops or nothing or calling an ambulance. This woman is clearly just passed out lying on the floor and she's not getting up. She was, awake. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't getting up. And I believe it was her granddaughter was there. And that entire situation was just crazy. But eventually a couple of people finally helped. My dad was just, sitting there fanning her, making sure she didn't pass out from heat, exhaustion, or whatever related to that. And he was just fanning her while she was lying on the floor, because we didn't know if she had a concussion or what, because she fell pretty hard. We heard it. And while we were, waiting for an ambulance or something to come, or at least the cops, we was just doing everything we could to help her, keep her awake so she didn't fall asleep. It took forever. It was hot in that store, and it took forever for the officers to come. It felt like ages. By the time the cops got there, this woman could have been dead. She could have been dead. If nobody was there to help her or, keep her awake, or who knows what would have happened. But it took the cops that long to get there, or even an ambulance. I think the ambulance was there too. I don't remember, but I just remember how long it took them to get there. It took them forever. And they're not even far from the area we were. I'm pretty sure, from what I remember. But that's just crazy. It's so crazy. The police departments, or certain police departments, I will say, their sense of urgency is just not, it's not urgent at all, or it doesn't seem that way when it comes to minorities, especially blacks, Hispanics, immigrants, all that. It's crazy. And that's what that situation with Glinda reminded me of, because she was just completely being ignored. The cops weren't coming to check anything out. The cops took a blonde Caucasian man's word versus other witnesses' word for whatever was going on at the time. And that alone speaks volumes in this series. Race had played a really big role, I feel, in this entire situation. And a lot of this could have been prevented. But imagine being Glinda and, feeling so helpless, so vulnerable, not being able to do anything about what's going on next to you. And you feel so helpless. You have no idea truly what's going on next door. You're hearing all this constantly, probably every night, every other night, or whenever it happens. And you just feel completely helpless. You can't do anything about it. All you can do is you can't even sleep through it. You can't even sleep through it. You just lie there and you can't do anything. You can't do anything about it because you're scared. You have children. Your daughters could be in danger. You don't know what this man is thinking. Just imagine being a parent and being so helpless. You can't do anything, to make a situation better or make it a safer place, for your children and, yourself and the people around you. Man, that's some heavy stuff. That is some real heavy stuff. I'm like dang, I didn't even think about the situation like that. And not many people do. Because when you hear about serial killers, that's all you hear about. You don't hear about too much about the victims, their lives, and all the dreams they had while they were alive, all the plans that they must have had. And I'm sure like they were, trying to go places and trying to make something of themselves. And here they are being snatched up and just not given another chance at life, to achieve those dreams. And man, it's just so sad. It's so sad. Like, the entire situation is sad on both ends.